Chairs No Waiting, episode number 538, Mayberry Cool Facts. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by the fine folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Folks, it's that time of year. You need to head over and get your 2020 Andy Griffith Show wall calendar. That's right, they're available for pre-order right now, and they'll be shipping later this month in July 2019. So get your 2020 calendar. It's a 16-month calendar, so go and check it out. While you're over there, you might want to check out the Barney's No Jerk t-shirt because it's hot and you need something to wear. This will be a great shirt. Head over to weaversdepartmentstore.com and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. The executive producer of episode number 538 is Rainey Vinson. So thank you, Rainey, for being a sponsor here on the podcast, and thank you for being here with us as well. We're going to have a lot of fun this evening or today, whenever you're listening to this. It's evening for me. We're going to be going over some Mayberry cool facts. We're going to hear from at least one listener, and then hear from Randy Turner with his This Week in Mayberry History. So we got a lot of fun coming. So let's get into some of the cool facts. You know, I should get some background music, shouldn't I? I like background music. Let's try this one. That's from the VW Boys, ladies and gentlemen. Flint Hill Special. So there's our background music. Thank you to VW Boys at vwboys.com. You can go and check out their music. So let's go and do some of our cool facts to start with. Now these, a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about are things that you may or may not already know. I've been researching things and I've ran across some of these that fans from the Andy Griffith Show might not be aware of, but you might. But I realize that you are probably a lot like me. And you may have heard some of these things, but hopefully you're enough like me that you've forgotten stuff that you once knew and you don't mind being reminded of them. Because I tell you, that's one of the great reasons about having this podcast. I can go back and listen to myself and go, wow, I didn't know that. It's sad but true. Sad but true. So whatever the case, we'll be enjoying a few minutes here in Mayberry just talking about old friends, and I think we can all enjoy that. So here's something you may or may not know. Andy Griffith owned 50% of the Andy Griffith Show. Did you know that? When the idea for the Andy Griffith Show was created by Sheldon Leonard and Make Room for Daddy star Danny Thomas, which you know Danny Thomas did it. That's Marlo Thomas's dad, by the way, in case you didn't know that, Marlo Thomas. Andy agreed to star in the show and won himself a half ownership in the production. So Andy hadn't been pursuing any kind of television career at this point. Because he was still focusing on his movie career because he'd already had successful movies like A Face in the Crowd. If you haven't seen that, it is amazing. You need to see it. You can get it over at Weaver's. And also No Time for Sergeant, also a very good movie. You can check both of those out over at Weaver's if you'd like to. But those were some of the just absolutely great movies, and that Andy had been in. So he wasn't really looking to be in any kind of a TV show, but they talked him into it, and Danny Thomas was one of them that talked him into it. Now, Danny, if you may not know this either, Andy was the only Southerner really involved in creating the shows. Now, Danny Thomas, he was from Toledo, Ohio, so he's not a Southerner. And of course, then there's Sheldon Leonard. Also, Sheldon Leonard, he was born in New York City. You know that? He was from New York City. He was a veteran actor, acted in a lot of things. He was known for playing tough guys, and a lot of times they were comedic in some way. He'd been on the radio and television. And Sheldon had produced the Make Room for Daddy show that Danny Thomas was on, and it was the launch pad for the Andy Griffith Show as well, because the first episode, or the first pilot episode, I guess, for the Andy Griffith Show was on Make Room for Daddy. Now, Sheldon was involved in all of that, getting it all going. Now, he also later produced, after the Andy Griffith Show, or while the Andy Griffith Show was on, I guess, the Dick Van Dyke Show, and also Gomer Pyle, USMC, and some other successful television series as well. Sheldon continued doing occasional acting roles, most of the time in sitcoms. He was on Cheers, for instance. You may not have known that. He starred in only one show ever. He was the star of only one, and it was a short-lived show called Big Eddie in 1975. Did you know that? Another little bit of trivia for you here on The Big Bang Theory. If any of you have ever watched that, and being a computer guy, a nerd person, I have. The two main characters on The Big Bang Theory are named Sheldon and Leonard. And yes, they were named after Sheldon Leonard. So that's, I thought that was pretty cool. So another Andy Griffith Show producer, not counting Sheldon Leonard, was a veteran comedy writer and director Aaron Rubin. Now, he was from Chicago, also not a Southerner. While working on the Andy Griffith Show, guess this, Aaron Rubin gave a young Ronnie Howard an 8mm movie camera that created Ronnie's interest in cinematography. Probably also helped him fuel his direction into the directing chair. Ron Howard did. Rubin did. Aaron Rubin. In 1964, Aaron Rubin created an Andy Griffith Show spinoff, Gomer Pyle. So he was involved in the creation of that one as well. He later produced, and I didn't know this, Sanford and Son for Norman Lear. There you go. A little bit of interesting information. Now, there was controversy. Well, not really. Back around the Andy Griffith Show. One of the directors for the Andy Griffith Show had been blacklisted. Yeah, he was blacklisted. His name's Kobe Ruskin, and he had been named as a communist sympathizer. Yeah, I got it out. In the early 1950s, and in what was later a discredited publication known as Red Channels was the name of the publication, that basically destroyed a number of careers during the days of the Cold War. So he got him blackballed basically from Hollywood because of what they claimed that he was a communist sympathizer. Wasn't true, they later found out, but it still ruined his career. For a time, Ruskin had to go and work over in England, where the stigma wasn't quite as bad and didn't worry everyone as much. He returned to the United States and restarted his television career directing with the Andy Griffith Show. And he went on and did the Dick Van Dyke Show and Gomer Pyle as well. So I didn't know that, or I'd heard it, but I'd forgotten it. So there's a little bit of Mayberry trivia you may not have known. Now, Andy was, he really changed the show because he was an owner. And it's a well-known fact that Don Knotts, after he first saw the pilot episode of the Andy Griffith Show, he called up Andy and suggested, you really need a deputy. The sheriff needs a deputy. And Andy, he helped him get in contact with Sheldon Leonard, and, the rest kind of happened. Don Knotts had a pretty good reputation already from being on the Steve Allen Show, and that certainly didn't hurt. Now, another thing you may not be aware of, that I wasn't really aware of, is that Andy Griffith and Sheldon Leonard disagreed about something about the show. Now, Sheldon Leonard had insisted that there be a mayor that was a nemesis for Andy Taylor. Okay, so Sheldon really thought that needed to happen, but Andy didn't agree that. But Andy agreed to try it out for a while and see how it worked out. And soon everybody saw that Andy was right. Basically. So basically over that time, Parley Bear had been the mayor, and he kind of drifted off there at some point. So no harm was really done to Parley Bear or anything. So, but if you notice, the mayor just kind of disappeared after the first couple of years there. There was just no mayor after that. And really part of that was because they added Don Knotts to the Andy Griffith Show. And he really changed the dynamic of the show, believe it or not, and made it into the amazing piece of work that it became. In the pilot episode, Andy, he was the comic. He was the funny one. And in the first several episodes of the show when it came out, Andy was kind of the funny guy, right? But adding Don Knotts really changed all that. And Andy Taylor became the straight man, and Don Knotts became the funny man. And that dynamic, I believe, is what made the Andy Griffith Show just absolutely amazing. Now, Parley Bear is the mayor. He was fun, and I enjoy having the mayor. The mayor did a lot of things, but he annoyed me to no end when he would try to make Andy do things. But I really do enjoy, and I wish they'd have had the mayor on there a little longer, because he did add a lot of comic stuff to it, but I can definitely see how it happened. Now, moving on, Andy Griffith, he also realized, that having somebody missing from the cast really threw off the well-oiled machine that he had been creating. And Andy Griffith Show fans may or may not have ever noticed the difference between Howard McNear, who played Floyd the Barber in the first 2 seasons, and then he was very animated. I don't know if he was very, very animated. And then after that, in the next seasons there, when he came on, he was much less animated character, much more relaxed. He talked much more like that, real slow, like that. Well, the reason, and some of you may not know this, a lot of you would, I don't know what you know, but a lot of folks would know this. He had a stroke. Howard McNear had a stroke in December of 1962, and it was a serious stroke, and it didn't mess up his speech very much, but overall he couldn't move well. He was unable to move mostly his left side quite that well, and feeling that he was absolutely pivotal to the show, Floyd, and plus Andy just really liked Howard McNear, Andy worked really hard to bring him back. Now, one of the things they did to bring Howard McNear back as Floyd was they created a way for him to be able to basically sit down while he was doing the barber stuff. So he was behind his chair, and they used what's called a boat swing chair, which is it's kind of like a swing with where the ropes come around and come back into a triangle point in front of you, and you can hang it on something and then sit in the little swing. And basically they would hang that on the back of the barber chair for Floyd to be able to sit in, and he could pretend to cut hair and stuff and do his line sitting there. And they also did a lot of tricks to allow him to be able to not be seen walking very often or just move in. So kind of pay attention to that if you enjoy that kind of information. I don't think I even noticed it, not really, until it was pointed out to me years ago that Floyd had a stroke, that you didn't see him walking. They did a really good job of doing that. Now, Howard McNear, he left the show in 1967, and then he passed away in 1969. But wow, what a great tribute that was to Andy and wanting to get him back. So I think that's just amazing. Folks, there's lots of more information I could give you. There's stuff, I had all kinds of information about, and maybe I'll do it later, that most of the Andy Griffith cast members were experienced actors, either on stage or on the radio or television. I gave you one right up front. Ronnie Howard is not yet called Ron at the time. He was the son, of course, of Rance Howard, which we've talked about here on the podcast before, and had been acting in little one-shot roles since 1956. Now, you realize how little he was? 1956, he started doing little one-shot roles on TV shows like Johnny Ringo, The Twilight Zone, Dennis the Menace, Cheyenne, Pete and Gladys, and other shows. He did other guest roles during his time on the Andy Griffith Show as well. And of course, he was seen in the pilot of the Andy Griffith Show. And I think I'll go through more of these next week. So if you enjoy this, come back and I'll give you a few more and probably hit Ronnie's back up again as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right, so let's turn down the music. I got a voicemail as well I want to play for you. Or not voicemail, a email. And this is from Eric Marshall. Now, I felt kind of like Casey Kasem if you ever listened to Old America's Top 40, but this will be pretty fun. All right, so I got an email from Eric, and Eric says, "Hey, Alan, my parents and myself are avid followers of your podcast. We also like to think of ourselves as elite Andy Griffith Show fans, but every time you have one of your trivia episodes, we quickly realize we may just be a little ignorant, but we ain't stupid. Oh, you're just ignorant, Ernest T. You're just being nice. Anyway, he goes on to say, we've been Andy Griffith Show fans for many years and followers of yours since at least 2012, and had the pleasure of meeting me, Alan, and Floyd in person at Mayberry Days in 2014. Mayberry Days was a blast. Being around you and all the down-to-earth folks who share the same love and language of the Andy Griffith Show was refreshing. In August 2016, my parents' home was destroyed due to a major flooding that affected the Baton Rouge area. This was a temporary setback for us. The ability to continue watching and listening to me weekly, to the show, the podcast here weekly, and still laugh with Andy, Floyd, and the gang helped to get us through the tough times. Wow. Is that not amazing? Wow. My father, Dennis, sent you some pictures of the flood a couple of years ago, and you shared them on the podcast. Thankfully, we've recovered and everything is okay in Mayberry. Wow. I just wanted to say thanks for all the laughs you've provided us over the years. And when I said that there's a language of the Andy Griffith Show, I really believe that. All those little phrases from various episodes have been so woven into the fabric of our daily family conversations. In fact, it's gotten so bad that I have to warn my parents often not to utter some of the phrases in public, and we don't want people thinking we're just plain old hicks. Over the years, I've had some embarrassing moments where my mom or dad in a conversation with someone would throw in a, yeah, boy, or a hear this, or creature. And I admit I cringed a little bit every time. I guess if you watch the show as long as we have, it's just bound to happen every now and then. In closing, I have one request. On July 13th, 2019, my parents, Dennis and Linda Marshall, will celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. We will be on vacation in Charleston, South Carolina, and likely listening to your latest podcast episode somewhere along the way during the week of July the 8th through the 13th. It will be quite a thrill for them to hear Floyd give them a shout out and wish them a happy 50th anniversary. Oh, and you might want to relay the message that their son loves them very much. In the words of Floyd, that would be fascinating, just fascinating. Baton Rouge says, thanks and happy motoring, Eric Marshall. So Eric, thank you for writing in. I feel like Casey Kasem and reading that. Happy anniversary to Dennis and Linda. I should do it as Floyd, shouldn't I? Hey, happy anniversary. Yeah, 50 years. Yeah, 50 years. Yeah, I bet he sits still in the chair too, doesn't he, Linda? Yeah, 50 years. Happy anniversary to both of you. Folks, I love these kind of stories for me, honestly, but this is really what it means, isn't it? The Andy Griffith Show, bringing people together, friendships, making people smile. And folks, you really made me smile by this letter. So thank you, Eric. And I was able to find the pictures of the flood and showed them here on the video version of the podcast if you want to see them. But I remembered those pictures, and so I was able to find them. And I hope you have a great trip. And wow, 50th wedding anniversary is amazing. Congratulations. So let's see. The Andy Griffith Show will be 60 soon. So y'all, it was on for about 8, you were only married a few years before it started. So that's great. All right. So let's move along now. We have a great report from Randy Turner. So let's go and check this out.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
While Don Haggerty was never a star player, he was a well-respected, consistent utility actor with over 200 acting credits over a 40-year career, including a stop in Mayberry. Don was born on July the 3rd, 1914 in Poughkeepsie, New York. An Ivy Leaguer, Don became a noted athlete while attending Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Not much information is readily available about Don's personal life. He was married briefly when only 22, and after the divorce remarried the next year. Don performed in live theater and was eventually cast in an uncredited role in a 1939 largely forgotten crime film, Back Door to Heaven. Don served in World War II and appeared while enlisted in a film made by the U.S. government as an instructional aid to demonstrate the dangers to servicemen of fooling around with loose women while in Europe. Upon returning to civilian life, Don decided to pursue acting as his primary career. He continued to do stage work, but also began his long career of television and film work in earnest in 1946. Many of Don's roles early in his career were bit parts, often uncredited in B-movies, but he eventually appeared in more well-received vehicles. Yet in most of those, he still had basically bit parts. For example, he appeared in John Wayne's 1949 war film Sands of Iwo Jima, but his uncredited role was as a colonel in a staff car. Don was in the 1950 film The Asphalt Jungle, but in an uncredited role as a detective. He did land a small credited role in the 1951 baseball comedy Angels in the Outfield. But it was in television where Don would make his mark. While he did appear in a made-for-television movie in 1946, Don spent most of the remainder of the 1940s in small movie roles. After appearing in a 1951 episode of Racket Squad, a television series that dramatized confidence men scams, Don starred as the title character in The Cases of Eddie Drake. This 1952 crime drama television series had an interesting development. It was based on the radio series The Cases of Mr. Ace, which had starred George Raft, who was mentioned in the Andy Griffith Show, when Andy said he would stay to guard a prisoner, since Barney had planned for he and Thelma Lou to watch a show on TV together, and Andy wouldn't want Thelma Lou to spend the evening alone in a dark room with George Raft. 9 episodes were filmed of The Cases of Eddie Drake for what was intended to be a CBS series, but the network never aired them. The now-defunct Dumont Network bought the episodes instead and filmed 4 more to round it out to the standard 13-episode half-season. The very similar series, The Files of Jeffrey Jones, also starred Don and was produced immediately afterward and ran from 1952 through 1954. Don appeared in a myriad of series, including multiple appearances as different characters in The Lone Ranger, Studio 57, The Loretta Young Show, Rawhide, and Sugarfoot, just to name a few. He played the recurring characters Sheriff Elder in State Trooper, Marsh Murdoch in The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, and Wes in Texas John Slaughter, which co-starred Betty Lynn. Don made his Mayberry appearance in Class Reunion, where he played Ralph Haynes, who was perturbed that Andy and Barney did not recognize him. After he left, Barney looked in the yearbook and, seeing the number of sports that Ralph was involved in high school, said he did remember him as he sweated a lot. Don was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960 for his work in television. He's actually the only person to ever have a star removed, but it was not as a result of any scandal. When Don Haggerty was given his star, his first name was misspelled as Dan. The mistake was never corrected until Dan Haggerty, who starred in Grizzly Adams, was also given a Walk of Fame star. Don's star had to be removed, corrected, and then reinstalled. After more than 200 acting credits over a 4-decade career, Don retired from acting in 1981. He passed away in 1988 at the age of 74. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Wow, thank you, Randy. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the great stuff that Randy's doing on the internet, send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com. That's turnersgrade@gmail.com. And Randy will make sure you don't miss out on anything because he's doing all kinds of cool stuff. He's got books coming. He's got a calendar. He's got all kinds of things going. So be sure to go and check it out. Weavers is going to be carrying the calendar this year as soon as it's out and ready to go, and the book. So we should be ready to go soon. So let's go. So thank you for that. I knew nothing about Don Haggerty. I did not know anything. And so now Randy has once again brought the education value to the podcast. So, wow, we're just keep learning things. It's almost like school when you come here. I hope it's fun, though. I hope it's a fun schooling that you're going through here on the Two Chairs No Waiting podcast. Folks, I would love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415, or you can email me at floyd@imayberry.com. floyd@imayberry.com. I'd love to hear from you. Next week is the Mayberry meetup. If you're planning on coming, you've got until the 10th of July to register to be able to go and eat with us on Friday night at the depot. We got 100 and I don't remember how many I said, 101 people going to the depot, 140 something people coming to the meetup. It's going to be big. Hopefully you'll see you there. If I don't, or even if I do, I'd still love to hear from you. So you guys take care and have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you next time right here on Two Chairs.